Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, I'm a brand new different set from my usual setting. And that's because we have none other than PropertyLimBrothers CEO, Melvin Lim, in my studio today. Okay, not my studio, NOTG studio. Yeah.
Hi everyone.
I'm going to share about what I know about Melvin first, because maybe this may be the public perception of you. Okay, then later if I have said any wrong thing, please correct me.
Sure.
Okay, so you work in prison service as a prison officer, and then you move on to PropNext as a realtor. After your stint in PropNext, you move on to start your own realty, which is PropertyLimBrothers Realty, PLB Realty.
Right.
And after that, you even open a PLB Media. So you're like a multi-faceted entrepreneur, which is, I can't even imagine, like so many change of trades and industry over this few years. So that's what me or the public perception know of you. So what do you think I've missed out in this journey that maybe people do not know what you really do for a living?
Right. That was many years back. My first career was as a prison officer. It was already 20 years ago already.
Mm.
Yeah. So that was when I was like 23 years old. So I sort of like went to a bond with MHA, because if you want to work as a prison officer, I think the minimum back then was about 2 years plus training. So it was a 3-year career. Yeah. And in 2007, I exited from Ministry of Home Affairs. Then that was when I went to the realtor role in the sales world for real estate. I didn't join PropNext initially. I was joining a smaller firm. Yeah, so back then it was a smaller firm setup. I was there for about 3 years. Then I shifted to PropNext to a larger agency. Yeah. However, during that journey, so my first 10 years in the real estate world was as a realtor, as a one-man realtor with my then partner, Adrian. So we will typically like operating like a one-man realtor kind of operations lah, like meeting clients, selling homes, bringing buyers to view properties, doing rentals, and just like the standard bread and butter kind of like a salesperson role. For the first 10 years. Then on my 11th year, I actually started PLB Media first.
Okay.
So we started PLB Media in 2018. Then in 2022, then we started PLB Realty.
Oh.
Yeah. So actually the media came first before the realty. Yeah. So while we're operating as a two-man partnership, we started the creative agency.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
But
That was the transition.
Yeah. I think that's a really fresh perspective, because even for myself back then, when I was looking through PLD videos, it's like a breath of fresh air. And I dare to say that you are one of the first few pioneers who took video marketing to another level, because I was looking through this very magnificent homes that I've never imagined in my life, and all that can only be shown through PLB videos. So I think the real question behind this is that what makes you motivated to go through so many different industries and life stages? Because I know for usual corporate workers, they like stuck in their one single job, one trade for the rest of their life. Because especially for government jobs, right? Like it's such a iron rice bowl from what people used to know of. So what made you take the leap from like prison officer to like where you are today?
I think back then, as a very young parent, so when I resigned, I have my first child. Yeah, now of course we are a family with 4 children, and my aspiration has always been like together with my wife, we have the same sort of like mindset, is that while we're both like working parents, but along the years, we're just thinking like, what kind of family do we want to build lah? Yeah, and my wife has always this aspiration to be a stay-at-home mom. She wanted to be present for the kids during their childhood years. Yeah, so back then I think it was because of this shift that once we have our first child, we had this decision that maybe she should work part-time rather than as a full-time, because we wanted to really like invest more in their childhood. Not investing in the sense that bringing them to a lot of classes, but invest in the sense that we want to be there for them. Yeah, so I want to be like the main breadwinner, then she can focus on the family. Yeah, at home with the kids. So it was this sort of like aspiration to maybe provide more for the family, and that was like thinking, what kind of industry should I go into?
Right.
Yeah, so it was then that first goal of like wanting to provide more for family first, having a little bit more no limit to my income. Yeah, then I dabbled into like either I should leverage on my degree in banking to become a banker, or maybe like should I think about like the sales route. So it was during that transition in my third year in the prison officer space. So I dabbled into this real estate space, and I started to like it a lot because I feel that it is like, firstly, being a self-employed. Secondly, it's like I'm running my own business. Thirdly, is that I'm selling like one of the most prized investment in anybody's life. And Singapore has this opportunity because like everywhere we walk into, properties are everywhere. Yeah, properties dominate, buildings dominate the whole Singapore landscape. And this is like a very stable asset class. So I feel that it's a very special kind of property and product that I can sort of like represent. Yeah. Then that started the whole journey. Yeah. So it was just purely about thinking that as a young person in my 20s, and I love to do sales from young, I always enjoy all the part-time work that has this sales component. So how do I really maneuver in this space? Yeah, it was just that shift basically.
Okay. So it gets quite interesting, right? Because you started real estate and all that stuff, but I think the fundamental difference between you and other realtors is that you start your own realty. I mean, that's a really big thing on its own. Like, we have all the big players existing, like some of them are even listed companies. So what make you the idea that, okay, so it's time that I'm finally going to start my own realty and break away?
So starting the realty has didn't cross my mind in the very initial years, because my first 10 years has really been about how do I survive as a real estate salesperson. Things were shifting from traditional to the internet.
Okay.
Then it only started the social media portion in 2016, 2017. 2016 was the first time we did the home tour video with a presenter. 2016 December. 2017 I did a few more videos. 2018 I decided to really build like a media production team. So why was there this shift was because I came from the traditional era to the internet era, where most people were building a lot of like landing pages, websites, and portals and stuff like that. But it was that think about, how can I add more value and then innovate within this space? And I didn't have the mindset of building a realty right from the start. All I wanted was that how can I sell a home better for a client? And how can we really not shortchange the marketing process? Because I feel that the marketing process was lacking in terms of content positioning. That means I feel that every property was so different, it should be positioned differently. So every property is like a product. So once the seller wants to put their property in the market, it becomes that their property becomes a product that they want to put in the market. And then how can we position this product differently from the competitors, which are other properties? Because let's say if you're a home seller, you only have one product that you want to sell.
Yes.
You shouldn't leave any potential value on the table. That means perhaps your property, if it's positioned to its fullest potential, it can hit this price. But just because of a lack of marketing, lack of content positioning, you didn't highlight the pros of the place, you didn't solve the obstacles to why this place cannot sell, you leave a lot of value on the table.
Yeah,
maybe you can hit this price, but you just go with this price because you didn't know that there was this blind spot that you can actually achieve this price. So my mindset was that from a seller's point of view, how can we sell this product better? That was the very initial step. And then of course, as things goes by, we start to really go very in-depth into creating home tours. Then within digital marketing, within social media, we went through like a 21-step campaign. Then it slowly evolved to a stage that we started to build a sales team. Then we realized that the next move will be to start a realty, because our business model was quite different from the big agency model. Big agency model is very suitable for one man or a dual partnership model. But at this stage, it wasn't really suitable for what we were evolving into.
I guess I really like that point that you all took marketing to a new level, because it can be applied to individuals as well. Because how are you going to market yourself to your boss or your employer or your potential company that you are valuable to the company? Because a lot of people do not know how to present themselves, and in your case, it's how to present the property in a way that is marketable to a higher value, which is why all these skills actually are transferable. How many of you are already using Webull for options trading? And I am one of them because of these reasons. Number 1, low commissions. Webull charges just 55 US cents per options contract with no platform fees for US options trading, one of the lowest in the market. Right now, enjoy a promo with 0 contract fees, no assignment or exercise fees, and no minimum deposit, but more on that later. Number 2, US market index options. Trade options on major US indices like Nasdaq 100, S&P 500, and Dow Jones directly in the Webull app. Index options provide broader market exposure and reduce single stock volatility while offering similar benefits like leverage and income generation. Number 3, options learning. Webull provides a learning platform that empowers beginners to learn about options trading through frequently asked questions and popular option strategies. So if you are new to Webull, you can get started with this welcome promo rewards. Fund a minimum of $2,000 US by 27 September. Complete 3 US buy trades within 30 days from the first deposit and maintain until 31st October 2024. And you can get $60 US of cash vouchers. If you fund a minimum of $10,000 US by 27 September, complete 5 US buy trades within 30 days from the first deposit and maintain until 30th November 2024, you can get $400 US of cash vouchers. And if you fund over $100,000 US, you can get 1.84% per annum USD Money Bull interest booster for 90 days. And this reward could elevate your USD Money Bull interest to up to 7%. There is an options trading promo for both new and existing users, where if you trade a minimum of 100 US options contracts monthly, the fees will be reimbursed when you fulfill the criteria. Also, Webull does not charge platform fees. Start trading with Webull by using my exclusive link or scan the QR code right here to get your Webull account today. Like I watch your videos, I also realize that we really need to bring ourselves to the next level by showcasing our talents that people may not have the angle to see that. So that's what PLB tries to at it from another angle, if I'm understanding correct. But would you say that there are some major struggles as a new player to the realty sector because so many big players as a small new company, or if I may say a startup? What were the challenges like that you can share?
So I think the challenges will definitely be like the mindset. Like it was a shift from, of course, like a self-employed, a one person model to gradually like running a business. So 2018 we started PLB Media as a business. We started to hire our first few teammates, then growing it. Then of course PLB Realty was another entity. Then it was like a second business that we have to grow as well. So running a business, I think the main challenges, especially like when you're new startup, is of course you need to firstly take that very short period of time to really grow so fast and so much in terms of your mindset as a business owner. So like the systems in place, the tax systems that you need, the CRMs that you need, you need to know about employment rules, employment passes. You need to pay CPF to your employees. You need to rent a space. You need to get equipments, the furnitures. You need to, make sure that things are done in a well-oiled fashion. And when you put a group of people together, then you also need to think about culture. Because you need to, if you want to run a successful company, the most important element in your business are human beings. Right. Human beings are where ideas and innovation come from. Equipments are not the main bulk of the business because the non-living things are dead. But human beings are alive. So human beings are your greatest asset. So it's also about like hiring, firing, is about building career progression, having KPIs, keeping your teammates accountable. They're also gradually building leaders as well. So there's like, during that short period of time, especially from 2018 until now, is about challenging myself to grow into like a leader, business owner, being very efficient, also like spending a lot of time on the ground to build people. So I would say that the greatest challenge is definitely about yourself, plus how can you identify talent and grow talent and keep talent, and that there's a lot of all these things in place, and I'll call this like under the spectrum of like management. And of course at the same time, if you're the boss of the company, you need to think about the strategy as well, and to grow the business, opening up new funnels and revenue. So all these like all come into play. Is about like the explosion of things you have to do.
But I'm really amazed because most people, if they want to start a company, they probably have experience in other corporate cultures that, okay, so I've seen this model work and then I'll bring it to my own new startup. But you came from a government service to a self-employed, and then now you're building a corporate culture. So that must be a really big shift, right? You went through 3 different industries. So because I cannot imagine the amount of stress and challenges you have to face lah. So how do you really transition that mental state?
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with my initial years when I was like really reading a lot. So I don't like to read books when I was young. And I realized like I only started seriously reading as I was transiting from a government job to a self-employed. So I went into like really loving to read a lot about non-fiction books about business, sales. So along the years, actually, I grew to be like a more aggressive reader now. Yeah, so I think I shared in one of my videos during the COVID period was that I have this practice about just stacking up like 10 books and I would just read 1 chapter from each book a day. So I became a very ferocious reader lah until today. So I think I learned a lot from books. My very first few books, I think what gives me that courage to really look from a holistic point of view was really Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah, same.
Because Rich Dad Poor Dad is not a book whereby you look at the title, you might think that it's like very salesy.
Yes.
It's trying to like get rich, teach you how to get rich quick. But I think it's a book on mindset, because as you dive deeper into his other series, especially like the cash flow quadrant, it's really teaching you about understanding where you are, especially the ESBI quadrant. Yeah, being an employed, how do you be successful as an employee? How do you be successful as a self-employed? How to be successful as a business owner and also an investor. So I think from that, it allows me to transit from an employee to a self-employed to a business owner and also an investor. Yeah. And it's a very holistic framework that I feel it works until today. It's more about the mindset shift lah. But right. I think along the years is that whenever I hit a roadblock, I will find books to read. For example, there was a period in my business that I don't have a copywriter. I went to buy all the books on copywriting. Yeah, and then I studied about funnels. I want to subscribe, click funnels and all this kind of stuff, and reading out content, watching content. Then there was also a season where I was not sure about all the platforms, because I came from an era I was using BlackBerry, so I didn't know about like all the different platforms, about how it works. And then I start to learn that, you know, every platform you have to respect the platform, in the sense that every platform have a different audience demographics and age group. How do you create content to make sure it hits the right audience? Right. Yeah. And also like there was another season that I didn't know how to build landing pages. So I went to read up how do you build that funnel. And I was still remembering during COVID, I set out a vision for the team. I said that we need to use 2020 and 2021 to shape the landed market. And back then, landed market, I feel that it was such a beautiful market, in the sense that all these properties are unique. Every landed property is different, but nobody was marketing it so-called like to its best way, right? So we were only in the HDB space and condo space before 2020. So once we started the vision, I actually draw like a wall map. Okay. Like how do we build the funnels and campaigns like to reach out to the owners and buyers? So like having ebooks, campaigns, geo-targeting and all that kind of stuff. I still have that funnel map until today. Is that with that, then through that 12 months, we then started to penetrate into the landed market, add more value to the sellers and buyers, come up with new frameworks, how to invest, how to buy the right landed property, how to rebuild A&A, and that was something that I think all came from reading up. Yeah, during the initial years plus consistently lah. Yeah, so I would say that books are my best friends until today. Okay.
Yes. Okay. I think you mentioned in several of your videos that you made a very big business mistake in one of the years, but I think I never really caught what exactly was the mistake. So are you okay to share it with our audience? Like,
yeah, I share it quite publicly in the sense that I think that the business mistake was really like a wrong mindset that resulted in like a wrong investment. Yeah, so it was like a mindset in the past whereby, you know, I just want to get successful very quickly, close the next sales, and not really looking at my clients as like human beings. Yeah, it's like chasing after the next deal. And I hit a stage whereby I feel that I don't enjoy the work anymore. And I was like just treating the transaction as I just want to faster finish the transaction and close the deal, which then it becomes like a polar opposite from the intent of my client.
When was it?
That was before when I hit the 32 years old.
Okay.
Yeah. So from 32 to 36 years old, before I started PLB, I call it the drought season. The drought season whereby we sort of like recalibrated, restarted, and we told ourselves that let's just do every deal, whether it's a room rental or we don't want to look at the commission value. Yeah, we just do deals based on like how can we help the next human being. Yeah, so I think it was like a phase that we were like retraining our mind. Yeah, it was also after I became a Christian that we started to recalibrate that if we want to do this business the long run, then I think the fundamental has to be correct in the sense that we shouldn't be anxious about closing the next deal, even though we need to survive in the business. But if we just invest in the relationship, in the long run, customers will return. Word of mouth will spread. And then in the long run, we wouldn't be so anxious once we built a base of very good relationship. So I think that 4 years was like a recalibration from the business mistake, which I think it was necessary. And then it was also like during that 4 years that I got a lot of time to read. Then we started to really find out about this gap in the market, that we can use video marketing to value add. Then that's how we got started. Yeah.
So at any point of that time, or maybe even until now, was there a stage where you feel like really giving up everything? And
of course. Even like until now, because now I'm in a very different season from 2018. Then from 2018, 2022, running this business, of course, as the business grow, there will naturally be challenges. For example, we are always challenging ourselves like, how do we sort of destroy our own business? Yeah, so like this is like internal disruption, which I believe is very necessary. If let's say we want to grow in this very competitive space. So sometimes I will just ask like my team or leaders, like, how can we destroy our company? Yeah, what does it take to destroy ourselves? And then from there we can recalibrate a new business plan. It's like, how can we die? It's in a sort like it's a reverse engineering.
I see.
Yeah, like because if we don't keep thinking about it, then we wouldn't innovate. We'll just like rest on our laurels, not innovate new things. Just let the current USP be the current USP, because USPs cannot last. I believe that every business has a core product, but if you don't value stack your product, you don't continue to innovate and improve on your core product, or you don't build other products, then basically what's going to happen is that the market is going to disrupt you naturally. Yeah, but if you self-disrupt yourself every time, then you can keep up with the market.
Okay, maybe I ask deeper.
Yeah,
where is the most recent time you ever thought of giving up, and what was the reason for it?
I think it was last year.
Okay.
Last year when my wife was asking me like, you've been running this business for so many years. You have so many plans for your business, like, but do you have plans for the family? So it was a realization moment that I felt that, sometimes like being a boss is like, you need to stretch yourself so much.
Yes.
And then I was thinking like, hey, is it because I have a lack of capacity? Is it because I didn't intentionally invest in my kids and my family? Like, I always plan on like all these town halls or strategic meetings for my company, and we plan like the event calendar 1 year in advance. But have I planned like an event calendar for my family?
Yes.
Yeah. So that was a wake up moment that I felt that I wouldn't say that I want to give up, but I just was challenging myself that was there a lack of intention that I became so fixated on running the business, growing the business, that I forget to grow my family.
Correct.
Yeah. So it was I would say it was quite a stage last year that I had this moment.
Yeah, I could totally relate to that, because at one point when I was doing my full-time job plus duty on the side, because like I mentioned in your podcast, that 9 to 6 day job, 7 to 10 YouTube. So where was the time for my family and my wife?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm glad that I'm already crossed that stage already. So everything is now in a much more balanced form. So as entrepreneurs, sometimes you really have to sacrifice a lot of our personal time, but it's always important to maintain a balance amongst other things lah. Definitely not easy.
Yeah. Alright, so this is just the first segment of Melvin Lim and myself talking about business, managing it, and how to achieve work-life balance while maintaining this sustainable business. In part 2, which is the second segment, we will dive more into Melvin's personal finance strategies, which includes his properties, investments, credit card, and even CPF. So stay tuned and subscribe if you want to hear more from Melvin and PropertyLimBrothers, and I'll see you in the next video.